This week in Sunday School, we're looking at some things that Jesus taught his disciples, or his followers. We find it in Matthew chapter 5, and it's sometimes called the Sermon on the Mount because Jesus spoke from a mountainside to make sure that everybody could see him and everybody could hear him. He starts his teaching with a list. We sometimes call this list the Beatitudes, and Beatitudes just means really, really, really blessed. So this is a list describing what the really, really, really blessed person looks like. Jesus gave them this list because he wanted them to know what his kingdom was like. And he wanted them to know what the people of his kingdom were like. So he said that they would be poor in spirit. They would mourn. They would be meek. They would hunger and thirst after righteousness or goodness. They would be merciful. They would be pure in heart. They would be peacemakers. They would be persecuted, treated badly because of righteousness, because of good things. And they would be blessed. They would be in his kingdom. They would be owners of his kingdom. Now, the purpose of this list isn't for us to feel bad and to choose one or two things to do better so that God would bless us, so that we would get some special kingdom brownie points from Jesus. No, we can't choose just one or two things from the list to do better. We have to do them all perfectly. But that's impossible, you might say. Or at least I hope so, because it is impossible for us. For you and me to do these things perfectly in our own strength is impossible. But this list will be found and fulfilled in one person, Jesus. When we look at this list, we should see how far away we are from this kind of person. We are not able in our natural selves. But then we look to Jesus. He is the one person who meets every item on this list perfectly. He is the one who looks exactly like this blessed person because he is him. And because Jesus is him, Jesus is the one who holds the keys to the kingdom. Jesus owns God's kingdom. Jesus is the one who is poor in spirit, who mourns over our sin, who is meek, who hungers and thirsts perfectly after righteousness, who is wonderfully merciful, who is perfectly pure in heart, who is the wonderful peacemaker, who was persecuted and even killed because of righteousness, to fulfill all righteousness. Jesus came and did all of these things. The kingdom of God is his. Now, why is this good news? Well, the Bible tells us that if we trust in Jesus to bring us into his kingdom, he can and he will. Not because we are good enough, but because he is good enough. First, Jesus makes us citizens. He gives us the right to be in his perfect kingdom. And then he makes us fit for his kingdom. He changes us so that we become more and more like the list that he gave in the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, the list that describes what the people of God's kingdom look like. Now, after this list and this amazing news, and still speaking to his disciples, he tells them to do something, to live like the people that he has made them, to live like citizens of his heavenly kingdom now on earth. He says it in a bit of a strange way, though. He says to them, be salty, be bright. Well, he says they are like salt. He doesn't mean that they are to live to make chips taste good. That's how we use salt, isn't it? To make our food taste nice. But in Jesus' day, salt was even more important. It was used for keeping things from getting rotten. So he says to his followers, live in the world in such a way that the stinkiness, the rottenness of sin is driven away by you, so that the rottenness of the world is reduced because you are there. That means living in your street, in your house or school in a way that is not sinful and rotten like the world around about us, but that brings life and joy to our neighbours, our family and friends. We are to live in a way that drives away the rottenness and stinkiness of sin. And then Jesus says, be bright. He tells the disciples that they are lights, the light of the world. Light helps us to see, doesn't it? It stops us from getting lost in the dark, from falling over and hurting ourselves. Helps us to see ourselves and others more clearly. And the light that Christians shine also helps the world to see Jesus clearly. But Jesus says, what is the point of having a light if you're going to hide it? Lights need to be shone so that people can see them and see everything else by them. That is how Christians should live, Jesus says. Don't hide in the dark. Let your light shine. Live so that people can see. But how exactly should we live? Well, we should be poor in spirit. We should be sad over sin. We should be meek. We should hunger and thirst after righteousness, after God's goodness. We should be merciful. We should be pure in heart. We should be peacemakers. We should stand up for Jesus, even if it means being unpopular. It means living like Jesus. So trust in Jesus and he will make you salty. He will make you bright. Don't hide who you are, because if you are Jesus's, you are a child of the King. You are part of his perfect kingdom. Next time you turn on a light at home or put some salt on your chips, think about this. Think about the way that Jesus wants us to live, and remember, he is the one who makes us able to live like this.